Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with a brand new early Netflix movie review, and today we are discussing the new comedy drama by the name of Fatherhood, which is starring Kevin Hart and will be coming to Netflix on Friday, June 18th, just a couple days ahead of Father's Day, which, by the way, happy Father's Day out there to all the wonderful fathers. But hey, we're going to be talking about this film. I'm going to be letting you all know my pros, my cons. Do I recommend you give it a watch over the Father's Day weekend? Can Kevin Hart actually act in dramatic roles? We're going to break it all down here in this spoiler-free review, but before we dive into it, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the community, welcome to the channel. Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That way you can get the alert for when I drop new content. It would mean a lot to me if you all appreciate this review to give it a thumbs up, share the video. It helps out the channel a lot, but I also appreciate all the support. And in those comments below, let's talk about Fatherhood. What worked for you? What didn't work for you? Did you laugh? Did you cry? Do you think Kevin Hart did a good job in this dramatic role? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. And also, if you are a Kevin Hart fan, what is your favorite Kevin Hart film that he starred in? Let's talk about that in the comments section. So, Fatherhood was a film that was circled on my movie calendar. It was a movie I was looking forward to because I'm going to admit, I like Kevin Hart, the performer, the comedian. I've seen him in person, very funny individual. I've seen all his comedy specials. And Kevin Hart, the performer, I like. Kevin Hart, the actor, is someone that I'm intrigued with because obviously a lot of his films are based in the comedy genre. I've seen a lot of his movies dating back to his very first film, Paper Soldiers, Scary Movie 3, 4, and then a slew of comedies for over 10 plus years. I mean, this man has been acting since the early 2000s, so he's been in the industry for quite a while. And, you know, Kevin Hart kind of falls in that realm where he's just playing the same role over and over and over again. But I'll say, I noticed in the last 5 to 7 years, he tries to implement dramatic moments in those comedies, but nothing like a flat-out drama, which we saw in 2017 film that came out in Tribeca first, The Upside, which we inevitably saw in 2019. And that was an okay performance by Kevin Hart, but it was this movie. He's playing a father. He just lost his wife. He has to be this father to this child. Does he deliver in the role? Well, let's talk about it. Saving the performance a little bit later, but let's start off with the pros here. The story. Now, I found this story to be very intriguing. Now, this is based on true events. This is based on a memoir by Matthew, who Kevin Hart plays. He documented all his, raising Maddy, his young girl, who, again, this is not a spoiler. This is all in the trailers. It's in the marketing. It's in the synopsis. He does lose his wife pretty early on, and he's responsible to take care of this newborn child. So the story to me really was intriguing because we see these type of father-daughter relationships all the time, but it's the perspective, right? We don't see a lot of black men taking care of their child. In this case, a daughter, which is another wrinkle to the equation. A man raising a girl and what comes with that, right? There's obviously things that men don't know about women, about raising a girl. So I like how the film focuses on that. I like that the film shines a light on the importance of fatherhood. And again, going back to not keep throwing the race card out there, but I think it is important to notify this. I come from that statistic where I didn't grow up with a dad in my life, and just seeing that other side of what media always shows and what the statistic shows, black men not being in the household raising their kid, but seeing this side of the story of a black man doing everything that he can to raise his daughter, to show her good morals, to give her all the things that he might didn't have as growing up in the story. As Kevin Hart mentions in this film, as Matthew, he didn't have his dad growing up. So I enjoyed the story, the narrative, the emotional beats to me worked really well at points in this film. In particularly looking at the perspective of, again, losing your wife, having this newborn child, with the idea of bringing in this child to this world, raising this child with your wife on your side, but not having the wife there. I felt that those emotional beats really worked in the film, especially as the film kind of goes on. I feel like the second half is where the film's at its best on emotional, dramatic, with a little bit of comedy. I feel like the second half was really at its best of the film. But going back to the emotional beats, I feel that they were earned. I feel that they were a true, raw emotions that really kind of worked for me. And I have a little bit of personal connection to that. I haven't married anyone. I don't have any kids, but I did have a really close friend of mine who had a family member who passed away shortly after having their first kid. So there's a little bit of that connective tissue to me with this story. But even taking that away, taking that personal connection away from the story, I thought that particular story and that raising a child with the idea of raising a child with your loving wife, taking that out of the picture and how that looks. So I like how the story handled that. Touching on the actual performances, I got to start off with the little girl who plays Maddy, played by Melody Hurd, who I just saw her a couple months ago on the Amazon show Them, which is funny that her mom in this film is her mom in that show as well. But I thought she was great as Maddy. She had the spunk, she had the charisma, she had great emotional range. I thought that little girl did a good job in the role. I also have to applaud Alfre Woodard, who is, listen, Alfre is one of the best actresses working in our generation. I mean, she has a Grammy nomination, Emmy nominations, Academy Award nominations. And she carried a lot of the emotional weight for me in this film. She is Lizzie's mom, who is the mother-in-law of Kevin Hart's character, and I thought that the emotional moments worked for me in this film. The conflict she had with Kevin Hart character in this film worked for me, and just the arc of the character, not being someone that believed that Matt, the character that Kevin Hart plays, was able to raise his daughter on his own. So I really enjoyed what she brought to the table. And also I have to mention DeWanda Wise, who I'm a big fan of her work, and this is just a side note. I think she is incredibly beautiful, but neither here nor there. She's a great actress. She brought another wrinkle to this story, because it's the wrinkle of, okay, what does it look like when a single mom or a single dad, when they lose their significant other, they have to raise a kid? Well, life continues to go on, and what does that look like getting into a new relationship? So that's what her character brings to the table. I thought she was great. So let's talk about Kevin Hart. I'll say this. Kevin Hart's doing Kevin Hart in this film, not as much as you might expect, but he does have his comedic beats that you've seen in the trailer, and you see in this film, obviously. But I thought that in the second half of the film, when I thought the film was at its best, Kevin Hart did deliver in those dramatic moments at points. And those points to me was when he felt like he wasn't being the best father for Maddy in regards to moving quickly into a relationship, maybe forgetting some of the traditions that he's built with Maddy over the years. Maybe he feels like he's not just being the best dad for Maddy. And he's creating his own narratives in his head, but I thought Kevin Hart brought that gravitas to the role. Now, there were some things that we'll talk a little bit later that I thought he was kind of lacking, but I think he gave me a little bit more than I was expecting, but there are some things that was missing that we'll talk a little bit about later. So I would say Kevin Hart did okay in the role, and I'll leave a little bit of more of that to be said later. But acting-wise, again, I mentioned the standout characters. I mentioned things I like, but let's talk a little bit about my criticisms. Going back to the lead of this film, Kevin Hart, who, again, as I say this, I'm a fan of him as a performer. I still think he has a lot to do as an actor regarding dramatic roles, because I've always said this. Comedians can make us laugh, but they can also make us cry. And I feel like Kevin Hart just, at points in this film, I think of very early on in this movie, once you all see it, you know what I'm talking about, but when he does lose his wife, I feel like everyone in that scene brought that emotional moment except him. It was just not working for me at points, and there's various points throughout the film that I thought that Kevin Hart, I just wish he would have pushed a little bit further, gave me a little bit more in those roles, in this role in particular, when it came to the dramatic beat. So I feel like he still has a ways to go to become a better dramatic actor. He can make you laugh. He's funny. He does his thing as a performer and as well as an actor in comedy roles, but I still think there was something lacking in the emotional department for me personally in this role, which, speaking of the film as a whole, this is based on a true story. This is based on, particular moments of the real life character and him raising his daughter. This felt like a greatest hits type of film. This didn't really feel like a movie. This felt like inserts and vignettes of Maddy's life and Matt raising his daughter, Maddy going to school, Maddy pooping for the first time, Maddy not being able to go to sleep. And it was all these little key points of her life that, again, were nice moments, good moments at points, but it just didn't flow well. There's an issue with the pacing for me in this film where it just didn't flow entirely well as a film speaking. Now, like I said, as oh, that's cute, oh, that's nice, oh, that's emotional, yeah, that stuff, it feels like I was reading like a Hallmark card or something of nature, but not felt like a cohesive, consistent type of film in regards to the pacing of the movie, which this might be a really small, minor thing, but for someone that's actually edited a movie before and edited many movies back in my school days, the editing was so weird in this film to me. Again, it speaks to the pacing, but the editing in particular, we would have these abrupt endings in this film in regards to abrupt scenes ending just out of nowhere. Someone would be mid-sentence. We would have a moment, which, by the way, the moment from Maddy being a baby to her being a 4-year-old in kindergarten came out of nowhere. Now, of course, that was going to happen, but I would have preferred if Maddy was like a 4-year-old to begin the movie, and we saw these like little flashbacks to tie into certain moments versus just how the film just out of nowhere, she's 4 years old. But nonetheless, I feel like, again, the pacing and the editing was like really strangely put together for me personally, which also speaks to the direction of this film. Paul Weitz, who is a very interesting director, the writer of Ants, he's directed Little Falkers and a couple other movies, but in particularly, he was the director of American Pie. The comedy in this film, again, I thought that some of the dramatic beats earned its emotion, but the comedy felt a bit off. And this is weird because, again, Kevin Hart, comedian. You have Lil Rel, comedian. You have Anthony Carrigan, who is Ho-Ho, Hank, and Barry, one of my favorite characters. The comedy did not work for me in this film at all. It felt forced. It felt generic. It felt so dry. This is a kid-friendly, family-oriented film, but man, I feel like they were just not necessarily holding punches, but I don't know where these jokes, who thought these jokes were funny. Again, very subjective. Comedy is very subjective, but again, this is labeled as a comedy drama. The drama definitely outshines the comedy for me in this film. So another thing I want to touch on, this isn't necessarily a negative or positive. I had mentioned, again, I like that we see the perspective of a black man raising his daughter, but I also want to mention that this is coming from a perspective of a story based on a white man's experience raising his daughter. And again, not negatively speaking or positively speaking, but it did feel like this was a white person's perspective played by black actors. And when you see the film, and again, I don't want to offend anyone, but I felt like some of the situations felt like a white person's experience versus a black person's experience. And again, once you see the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. But just how Alfre's character spoke to Matthew and how Matthew's mom didn't speak up for him. The job situation felt a little bit kind of forced and little kind of catering. I don't know. The perspective of this film was just a little bit, like I said, I felt like a white person's experience played by black actors. Again, I like that they show that perspective, but it just didn't feel organic. I'll just say that. So those are my pros, those are my cons. Before I give you my overall thoughts and if you should give this a watch over the weekend, make sure to like the video, share the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Overall, speaking about this film, Fatherhood, I have my gripes with the pacing, the editing, Kevin Hart not giving me everything that I was hoping to get in this role. But like I said, I did feel like the emotional beats worked for the most part. I did get emotional, especially, again, the second half of the film is where it's at its best. The first half is a little bit not completely, entirely worked for me. The third act takes a little bit of a detour in the story, but I think at the end of the day, when you end the film, I feel like it had a lot of positives more than negatives. So with that being said, I'll give Fatherhood a solid 3 out of 5. And I recommend you all give it a watch over the Father's Day weekend. I know there's going to be some fathers out there that can relate to this story. There can be some mothers out there that might be able, anyone can relate to the story, even if you're not a parent per se. I think you can speak to this, the emotion of being there for your loved ones and having people help you and support you and things of that nature kind of shine throughout this film. So that's my thoughts on Fatherhood. Once you all have seen the film, let me know what you thought of it. Your pros, your cons, do you agree, do you disagree with me? Let's have a discussion about it in the comments. As always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, share the video, leave your thoughts in the comments below. What's your favorite Kevin Hart comedy? Let me know that in the comments as well. And as always, I appreciate you guys supporting the video. If you stuck around to the end, hope you're having a great day. Hope you're staying safe. We'll see you in the next video.